Okay. So, good afternoon, Ben.
Hi Joe, how you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Very good.
Yeah, really good. What's the weather like with you?
Hot. So I'm in Bath in the UK, southwest corner of the UK. It's sunny. It's about 28, 29, 30 degrees. It's going to be a hot day.
Oh, yeah, very hot. It's only just started breaking through up here. I'm in North Yorkshire, and it's been quite misty all morning, but it's just starting to come out now.
But
So,
God's own country when the sun is out.
when the sun is out. So I can see there's lots and lots of people joining. A very warm welcome to you all. If you want to let us know in the comments where you are joining us from, that would be lovely. There's so many people that there's no way we're going to be able to keep track of everybody. But Marie, oh, amazing to have you. Hi, Marie from London. And it's Scorchio. Oh, good morning. Afternoon even, sorry. Oh, that's just great. And an international audience. How lovely. I'm seeing Sweden, Portsmouth, Coventry, Brazil. Hello, I love that. Saudi Arabia. Oh, amazing to have you all here.
All right, I'm going to cover up the bit where I can see how many people there are.
Oh, Ben, it sort of doesn't make any difference. That's so great. Oh, we've got people from France, from Holfirth, Joanne Green. Hello, I recognise that. That's not too far from here. Gorgeous Northumberland, Julie. Hello. Oh, this is absolutely fantastic. Liverpool. Hello, Akil. Lovely to have you here. Thanks, guys. Thanks ever so much for letting us know. Okay, so we're just going to kick off because these sessions just go by in the blink of an eye. So the longer we spend at the beginning, the less time there is for the really cool stuff that Ben's going to be talking about today. So hello and a very warm welcome to this Explain Pain in the Clinic. We've had a short summer break, but we're back now for the autumn term. So we're really excited and we're kicking off this morning with Ben's first session. So my name is Joanna Taylor and I am Director of Noi in Europe, and I'm joined this morning by my long-standing friend and Noi teacher, Dr. Ben Davies. Good afternoon, Ben.
Hi Joe, and welcome to everybody on the call.
Ben's been a Noi teacher for well over 15 years, and he has taught many Explain Pain courses to hundreds and hundreds of clinicians, probably more than he cares to remember. Ben is an active clinician himself, currently working in the NHS, specialising in rheumatology. Ben, could you just tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and your journey to where you are?
So I've got quite a niche role in the NHS. I work in Bath. Bath was the site of the Royal National Hospital for Rheumatic Diseases, one of the first kind of hospitals not first hospitals in the UK, but it was a specialist rheumatology hospital for people could take the waters of Bath. It was built in about 1770, and it sort of moved a few years ago up to the sort of District General Hospital here. But we've run a residential rehab program for people with axial spondyloarthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. So people from around the UK come for 2 weeks and they have this inpatient rehab stay. Inpatient, they're in a sort of residence accommodation, and it's the only course of its kind in the country, as far as I'm aware. So people come and they have lots of education, lots of hydrotherapy, lots of exercises, input from physios, OTs, medical reviews, podiatrists, psychologists, and we really try and help people learn a toolkit of approaches for this, lifelong condition, so that life is impeded as little as possible by AXPAR. It's a really good course. We get to know people really well, you can imagine, across 2 weeks. And we're just finishing a course today, so we'll be starting again on Monday.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Coming
to Noi, I read a thing by Lorimer in about 2002 that was pain education and physiotherapy are good for low back pain. And that was the first I'd heard of him. First I thought about education. I was in Bradford University's postgraduate library, where you had to get paper copies of the journal and photocopy it. And I think it just sparked my interest in the kind of Explain Pain idea. At the time, Lorimer was working in Oxford, so I got him to come up and do a seminar in Halifax. Joe, you came down and
I remember it. That's where we met.
Yeah. And it's kind of just gone from there. It's been great to be involved, and it's just something that I think always keeps me on my toes, facilitating education with really experienced clinicians that tend to come and explain pain is always a learning experience for me.
Yeah.
So I think was really useful.
Yeah, and you're a brilliant teacher as well, Ben. We get amazing feedback from your courses, so it's been it's been quite a journey, hasn't it? These last 15 years. Okay, so just to carry on with today's schedule, these sessions, these Explain Pain in the Clinic sessions, are all about exploring how to practically use Explain Pain in your clinic. Now, some of you will have been on an Explain Pain course already. And so for you, these sessions are designed to both reinforce and extend what you may have learned on the actual course. And for others who have not been on a course, this can act as an introduction to what it's all about. So just a couple of things before we start. Ben will be talking for about 20 minutes. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A or the chat. I'll be monitoring both. And we'll get to as many of them as we can. This is a particularly large group today, so we'll do our very best, and then any questions that we can't get to live, we'll endeavour to answer in the comments in the Facebook group afterwards. So the recording of this session will be in the NOI Clinical Discussion Group, which is a Facebook group. If you're not already a member, I would really suggest that you join that, because it's a great group. You'll find David Butler in there answering your questions, and also putting in there loads of really, really great content. So the link's in the chat, please jump on over. So before we won't waste any more time, today we are talking about pain being one of many protective outputs. So Ben, would you like to kick us off with what this means, please?
So on unexplained pain in the course, we think there's sort of 10 target concepts. And these might be things that, I suppose, over the years of research into teaching explained pain, curriculum development, I guess there's these themes that come through that both clinicians think are relevant, but also patient feedback, people like Hayley Leake's research, things that are important to people in pain. But there's these 10 sort of target concepts. And one of them is called pain is not the only protective output. These might be things, these concepts might be things that if you're sat with somebody in your clinic, you might think, this person needs none of this information. You know, they're engaged, they understand their health condition, they've come to me as a clinician, whichever flavor of clinician you are, and I have something I can kind of offer this person's problem, and in which case none of this is relevant. You might think, I think there's one target concept. If this person could kind of understand this idea, there might be two, there might be three. You might be clinically working in a group scenario. What would be the curriculum for your clinical group? Maybe you work in oncology. That would be certain things that would be kind of consistent for an oncology patient group, a rheumatology patient group, perhaps an athletic sporting patient group. But one of them is this idea that pain is not the only problem. So we often ask the group on the course to do a bit of a sort of thought experiment. If you imagine being stressed by something, threatened by something, and that could be a near miss on the motorway, and that could be watching a horror film on TV, that could be finding a lump on your body that you didn't, you're a bit concerned about. That could be anything that's sort of threatening to you. What happens? Now, clinicians usually have got loads of bullet points, loads of points that they'll talk about. They'll talk about fight-flight responses. They'll talk about the adrenaline response. So that could show itself as heart rate up, breathing rate up, muscle tension, ready to punch, to run, or perhaps freeze. Maybe people's thinking becomes really clear and decisive, or maybe people's thinking gets a little bit, frozen and we don't know what to do. Maybe their energy supply system shifts. You don't need the food that's in your stomach. You can get by with the energy that's in your musculature. Maybe things switch on, like your immune system, in case you get injured, so you're primed for injury recovery. And maybe some systems switch off, so digestive system switches off, sleep system. If you're being chased by a tiger, going to sleep is not a good idea for survival. Maybe your drive for intimacy goes down. You're not wanting to think about procreation and intimacy at that moment that you're in that sort of threatening situation. So So we can think about that sort of fight-flight system usually being really high, and the rest and digest system, the opposite, the parasympathetic system, is usually sort of shifted downwards and switched off, because through evolution, we've acquired many strategies to survive, to get through that situation that we deem threatening to our survival. So clinicians are usually really good at sort of verbalizing that, or being able to articulate that. The second sort of part of that question, or that session on the course, though, is what if you can't get away from that stress? You know, what if it's not a dog that you can get away from in the park? You can't switch off the horror film. You can't get off the roller coaster. What if there's a drip feed of stress stuff that's deemed threatening in that person's life? So this links to things like trauma-informed care. However old somebody is sat in front of you, you know, do you get a sense of their life? Has there been stuff in their childhood, young adulthood, or adolescence, young adulthood, stuff that we recognize as being potentially traumatic? Is that around how they were brought up, their experience of parenting, their experience of school, their experience of bullying, their experience of young adulthood, their experience of relationships, their experience of financial freedom, their experience of physical abuse they might have been experienced in life, sexual abuse, coercive relationships? What sense are you getting from this person that there may be things that are ongoingly challenging, more than just the pain that they kind of come in and talk to you about? How do we open up that conversation to people in our clinical space, that they, I suppose, firstly feel confident in talking about some stuff? That means they've got to see the relevance of it for you in your clinical space. Working in perhaps a sports injury clinic, people might be a little bit more like, why are you asking about, you know, these things? Working in a pain service, a long-term condition service, it's probably much more likely. If you're an occupational therapist with mental health training, you know, it's probably going to feel much more competent or much more part of your day job than if you're a sports rehabilitation person, perhaps someone who's very much more focused and musculoskeletal. So I think our start point is almost, how do you begin to open these conversations to people to learn more about the person, their history, their experiences, when it's relevant?
Something that we often find very useful in these sessions, Ben, is actually, you know, giving some examples maybe of the language that you might use in a clinical situation with a patient, because it's one of our most common clinical challenges. Actually, people say, just what words do I use? What do I actually say to this person to get this information that I need? Do you have any examples that you could think of where you might share some of that with us?
I think I've got kind of two, but before we go to those, almost, I suppose, who is this not relevant for? You know, where do you not need to worry about this as a target concept? And perhaps that's the person who's got quite a specific pain problem with quite a specific aggravating factor, maybe a very specific injury history. You know, if the how they present to you is in line with perhaps healing time or their mechanism of injury or the trauma, you know, that perhaps is the person who you don't need to worry about this. But the person who's got more perhaps wider spread pain, perhaps pain that they've sought help from other clinicians, other services, it's been around for a while, it's a little bit vaguer, then that's the kind of person perhaps we're thinking about. Where they might have pain that seems out of proportion to physical findings. And I know that's a really broad statement, but it's got a lot of nuance to it, perhaps. But I think the two things I will often say in, when I used to work in a pain service, almost everybody, I would ask something like, have there been difficult things in life for you to cope with? Words like that. Have there been things in life that you've experienced that have been difficult to cope with? Are those things ongoing? You know, were those things kind of started and finished? Were they one-off experiences or a certain period of time that, you know, life has now changed? Are those experiences ongoing? So I think what lots of, and I'll speak for physios here, but I think what lots of physiotherapists are often worried about is the sort of Pandora's box worry. If I ask those, because I think everybody on this call, you don't do your jobs if you're not an empathic human being. Nobody is in healthcare if you're not empathic to a certain degree. And I think we all get that internal sense of there's more to this person than they've told me so far. There's stuff here. And I think we can either kind of go, oh shit, I'm not going there. And we sort of shut the door and we take our clinical questions in a different direction. And because you've shut the door, the person loses a little bit of trust perhaps in you. They won't tell you, you know, almost that relationship is affected by that. And you'll never get a second opportunity, I think. So you may, so I think your clinical outcomes, I think, will probably be less optimum than they may have been. So do we want to probe somebody to tell us that they were sexually abused as a child, or they've experienced sexual violence as an adult? And then we go, thanks for telling me that, and I'll pass you on to somebody else. You know, I think we've also got to be really cognizant of people tell us these, experiences they've had because they have a sense of trust with you. So there is a bit of, how do we open up conversations? And I think words like, have there been things that are difficult in life? We can then kind of talk about things. We can talk about past experiences and whether we need the details of their, coercive relationship that they've been in, or, bullying experiences. I don't know that we always need the details. So one option, one sort of question I often use is that, have there been difficult things in life? Experienced, are those things ongoing? Because if it has finished, I had this relationship, it stopped, it's finished, I left, it's gone, it is a bit different than there is stuff that's still difficult in life. I'm walking on eggshells at home, it's really job is really stressful, job is really challenging. I think that's one option. I think the other option is, I'll sort of say, look, when again, as physios or sort of MSK clinicians, we're well versed in asking aggravating and easing factors, and people are often really smart and really sensible, and they've got things that they can tell you clearly make their problem worse or easier. But for the people who haven't, I'm definitely not a fan of pain diaries, but I'll say, look, I think things fall into one of four things. Have you got clear physical factors that worsen this pain problem? We've probably worked that out. Have you got clear emotional factors? So, times of stress, anniversaries of bereavements, when you're in certain people's company, are there really obvious stressors in life that you think of being sort of psychosocial, emotional stressors, really obvious? People will probably recognize that, but they may not have thought to bring that to a sort of pain consultation. Phrases like pain and stress never play well together. Pain and stress are not good bedfellows. Almost a little, and again on EP we talk about nuggets, little nugget of information, just that little statement of fact. Pain and stress don't play well together. And then you kind of leave it with them. Third option, are there micro triggers that are coming together in terms of time? So if you've not slept for 3 or 4 days, well, if you've had a period of bad sleep, you could have coped, but it was at the same time as some work pressures. It came at the same time as maybe parents were, failing in their health or their independence, or your kids were having, their own life issues, schooling issues, kids having, whatever it might be. There were like 2 or 3 or 3 or 4 things that came together. They came with an inopportune timing. Can we help people work that out? Fourth is, pain has a bit of a mind of its own sometimes, and however much we explore, we just don't really find a clear provocative factor, particularly one that's physical. So we've got to think, I suppose, broadly. And like I said, I'm definitely not keen on pain diaries. I think that increases people's focus on pain, but kind of lifelines. Can you just think about how has your symptoms changed across life, across the last couple of years? Or can you also think about major life events, what's gone on? can you ask them to take kind of big picture perspective?
That's great. Thanks, Ben. I'm really enjoying unraveling this. I suppose my question here about the next direction to go in is, so you said that pain and stress are not good bedfellows. So is this something that you would actually say to a patient in front of you? Where would you go next once you've sort of done the information gathering and that lifeline, you know, collecting the lifeline, which I love the idea of that. And then when you actually sort of, you've built a picture of the person in front of you, or, you know, you're building that picture. Where do you go with this target concept? So you understand it as a clinician, and then you've got the person in front of you, you've got some idea of their situation. Where do you go with communicating to the patient about the target concept? Do you go down that route? You know, is that helpful to the patient for them to understand this target concept?
So with our AXPAR group, axial spondyloarthritis, this is a condition of a prognosis of bone fusion. You know, people have different prognosis, but across life course, there can be an increasing amount of stiffness in the spine, other joints to a lesser extent. So I'll sort of draw a straight line from pain often presents in teenage years, early adulthood, so from your 20s through to however old the group is, 60s, 70s. Did your pain go in a straight line as you got older? Has it got worse? You know, and everybody says no. So pain gets worse at times, pain gets easier at times. People have sort of, you know, flare type problems. You draw a bit of a sort of wavy line. You go, well, this is really a group, remember, this is not an individual person, but you could do it with an individual person. So when things were getting worse, can we unpick what was going on? Can we understand the contributors to that? Biopsychosocial contributors to that? Can we do less of that? Can we mitigate any of those factors? But I'll also focus on the flip side, which is when life was better, when symptoms were less, whether that's pain, fatigue, you know, generalized quality of life, sleep quality. What can you think about what was going on in life when life was better? Now, it might have been a change of drugs, biologics. It might have been a period of being on steroids, but it might have been a period when they had access to Pilates classes, when life was going well, when they were in a job that was really secure and supportive, when they had a better, you know, maybe if you think pre-COVID, they had a sort of better social network and social interactions in COVID, or lots of people obviously lost social connections, and we've seen that worsening people's outcomes. Is one bit. I think another bit is, as the clinician, hearing some of the stuff that someone's having to deal with, there has to be a bit of a thought of how skilled am I? So for the person for whom this has got no relevance, of course, you just carry on and do your maybe tissue-focused exercise, manual therapy, or whatever. Someone's got some life stresses that you think, actually, I can psychologically use physio. I'm a physio who can use psychological principles. I'm an OT who can use psychological principles. We can talk about worry as an output, worry about what will happen if, what will happen, how will I cope, you know, when. Well, I think as therapists, we can use graded exposure for those things. Let's think about that thing. How do we help you expose yourself to that challenge a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, so you gain competency and anxiety reduces. If you've got more depression, maybe because you failed at stuff, I know that's a really broad thing, but like if you're backward looking, can we help you achieve stuff? If you've got a sort of stress level that's, you know, bubbling along and you know, people are almost picking up that sort of fight flight, it's bubbling along, can we teach you relaxation strategies, and can we help you see the relevance for those relaxation strategies? Deep breathing, visualization, mindfulness, mind-body connection exercises like yoga or Pilates. You know, what suits you as from your skill set? Or you're thinking, do you know what this stuff is beyond my sort of scope? This is stuff that I'm, you know, maybe the person's disclosed history of childhood abuse or, you know, sexual abuse in the past. I think we have to then just give them the option. And go, look, as a physio, I can do, my skill set is X, Y, Z. There's these things which you could absolutely leave where they are. you can absolutely just leave them, you know. Or have you explored options to, you know, resolve those thoughts, deal with those thoughts differently, deal with trauma differently, learn new coping strategies for a history of trauma or ongoing sort of, you know, stresses? Because if there are, here are the options, and that might be local talking therapy services, that might be local social prescribing services, which in the UK are increasingly common. So people in your GP practice who know what's going on in that social world. Does it need talking therapy practitioners? Does it need, you know, more psychological, psychologist support? So are the clinicians sat on this call in a multidisciplinary team who have fairly easy access to psychological support and psychological, you know, psychologically heavy teams? Many of us won't be. So I feel it's a little bit of a sense of where does the person and me match up? If they've got stuff that's out of my skill set, then I think we need to just offer them the reason, and offer them the opportunity, and offer them whatever signposting that you've got within your local health services. There's people from around the world.
Thanks. We've got a great question, actually. We're just going to pose this live from Mark. It says, "Hi Ben, sometimes when exploring the relationship between stress and pain, patients tend to understand that avoiding potential sources of stress would improve pain. How would you support those conversations without patient withdrawing from activity?" Great question.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Mark. From down the corridor. Nice to see you. I think stress often has a bad name, doesn't it? Stress has a bad rap, if you like. And I saw anonymous attendee has added sugar as a sort of, you know, pain. Food can worsen pain, and certain foods absolutely can be a kind of stressor. But I think we need to maybe talk about with patients the difference between good stress and bad stress. Now that's a bit of in some ways a false dichotomy, but, you know, bad stress, I think I would often say to people, is stuff we don't have control over. So whether that's other people's behavior, whether that's politics, whether that's climate change. Like I have no handle on climate change. I can't action anything outside of my sort of, you know, my scope of my life. But there are good stresses, and I think moderate exercise is a good stress. I think putting ourselves forward for, you know, self-development through work, through education, through reaching out to people, you know, old friends you've lost contact with is sort of, it's a stress, isn't it? How they respond, how they want to meet up with me. But inherently, I think there is a good stress about stresses we apply to ourselves that we have control over, that we can grade, that we can sort of scale. Stress we haven't got control over. I think that's the bigger problem. So for Mark's question, I think trying to help people think about stuff they've got control over, and that could be food, that could be how much exercise, that could be giving themselves permission and ability to practice relaxation techniques, that could be kind of naming the problem and then thinking about how they might deal with it. Makes this stuff practicably dealable with. And I think then to the complexity, you know, of persistent pain, we're trying to help people have that as many tools as they can to improve their quality of life, either to completely, you know, improve and perhaps even eradicate their pain experience, or improve their quality of life with a pain experience. Yeah,
100%. So we've got just one. I think we can do one more question. So from Matt, I love and use the idea of graded exposure in sports. We could call that periodization. Any thoughts on how to progress this if there are multiple stressors, such as anxiety and fear of several movements, just as an example? Great question, Matt. Thank you.
I'm just trying to see the question. Is it in the chat?
It's in the chat.
Oh, there it is. Those graded exposure in sports. Yeah, I think if we're talking, so, you know, as a really good clinicians on the call, like, you could be a source of stress because you kind of go to somebody, right, here's a moderate exercise program, and I want you to carve out time in your really busy life for some relaxation, and I want you to go home and do some goal setting and life review, and I want you to read these resources. I'm going to signpost you to IAPT, and we've got hydrotherapy course. Come into hydrotherapy. Like, we could very easily be a source of stress by overloading. So I think the way I'd sort of take Matt's idea is like, so what's the priority here? We've identified some stuff, we've got perhaps some strategies. Do you, the patient, do you have a view of which of these is most applicable at this moment? Let's focus on that. Let's do that. Whatever they come up with, whatever they feel is appropriate, and let's get good at it. Let's get good. I mean, that's from an athletic perspective. I think that's what periodization is. Let's get good at being strong, and then we'll pull away from that. We'll get good at our technical aspects of our sport, and then we'll come away from that, and we'll do, baseline fitness through the winter, perhaps. So, can you get good at your choice of relaxation? That's your choice. Let's do that. And then when I see you again whenever, see how that's gone. What's the next choice? So maybe just being cautious and aware of not overloading somebody with all those fantastic ideas that you've got as a clinician. Be a bit patient-led.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you. We have got another lovely long comment in there, but I think we're just going to have to wrap up now. We'll come back to that in the comments with the recording. So just to wrap up here, so Ben's been talking today about just one of the target concepts, one of 10, is that right, Ben, that you cover in a lot of depth in the Explain Pain course? So is it 10 target concepts now? Yeah, so this is just a very small snippet idea of the kind of things that you would cover in an Explain Pain course. And Ben's got, I think, 3 Explain Pain courses coming up, 2 of which are actually completely sold out. So we had to put another course in for him, which is in a slightly different format. It's called Night School, and it's an extended format Explain Pain course. So if you are interested in attending one of Ben's Explain Pain courses, then we have this starting on the 7th of October. And Ben, could you just give us a brief idea about what's different about doing the extended form Explain Pain course? Just so for
feedback over the 2-day course is that it is quite intense. It's 2 days, and of course most of it's online, so it's 2 days of quite intense thinking, talking, trying to be as interactive as possible. The Night School option is a Saturday morning for I think 4 hours, and then 5 2-hour Thursday evenings. And I think what it gives people, so it's exactly the same content, we use exactly the same workbook, we slightly change the order that we might do stuff in, just because of how things fit and how things kind of lead. We give people a little bit more, I suppose it's almost homework, which might be read a paper, it might be notice how you interact with patients in the sort of intervening 7 days. It might be, could you put a little bit of motivational interviewing, really basic skill into practice to kind of elicit patient interest? And the feedback from the one time we've done, well, at least I've done that course, is it just spread that, and it allowed, the practicalities to kind of come out across that, what is it, like 6-7 weeks. It was just less intense and a little bit more moderate, and perhaps more achievable for people with, and because they're recorded, maybe there's a Thursday evening you can't make, but there'll be the recording and you can catch that up. So I think there's a skip week in the UK for a half-term school holiday. So I think we've got like a skip week in the plan to, just not try and do that when people are away, perhaps on holiday with family time. Exactly the same content, same workbook, same slides, just smeared across more sessions.
And it's recorded, so if you can't join live, you can catch up. And also, if you want to go review anything and go back over any of the content, it's there, and you've got access to the recordings for a couple of months after the end of the course, I think. So it has been a very popular new format. So if anybody is interested in joining Ben's only available course in the next, I think 6 months, then we've got that Night School starting on the 7th of October. I have dropped the link into the chat. It is being organised by an organisation called Encore, and you can book directly on their website, or if you want more information about it, you can jump onto the Noigroup website, and there's all the course details and the program and the learning outcomes on there too. So don't forget, we run these sessions every couple of weeks. I think the next one is going to be next Wednesday, which is the 13th. And we've got Tim Beams coming on to talk about a different topic. If you join the clinical discussion group, there are probably 30 of these half-an-hour sessions all about how to use Explain Pain in the clinic on a huge variety of subjects with Ben and with Tim Beams. So, you know, come on over and join in, because there's loads of great stuff in the clinical discussion group, and these are all completely free. So it's been fantastic to have so many people joining today. We've really enjoyed presenting this for you. We hope you've got a lot out of it. Thanks so much. Thanks, Ben. And
Pleasure.
I hopefully see you really soon.
I'll answer some questions that I can in the Facebook group in the next few days.
Amazing. Thanks,
Thank
Ben.
you.
Take care, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you. Bye all.